welcome to Let's Talk About a series spotlighting esteemed leaders, artists, authors, marketers, creators, entrepreneurs, and brands sharing tips and expert advice on business, media, technology, and frankly, life itself. I'm your host, Cynthia Nelson, three-time entrepreneur, Forbes contributor, investor, and advisor. Today, I have the pleasure of talking to Carine Schneider. Sorry, I know your name really well, and I just
Don't worry about it.
Okay. Founder of Compass Equity Strategy Advisors. And what I'm going to do for my audience is read a little bit about you because you have a crazy, amazing background, but I want to highlight a couple of things. So you're not only experienced a well-connected leader and an author in the private market and global compensation industry, which I'll have you explain to the audience in plain English so everybody knows what it means. You have a deep experience also in consulting technology and financial services. She was named one of the 100 most influential women in Silicon Valley by Silicon Valley Business Journal in 2017, one of 17 women to watch in 2017 by Brown Brothers Harriman Center on Women and Wealth, and received the 2019 ProShare Award for services to employee share ownership. In March 2022, she was named one of the 20 most inspiring women leaders by Women Leaders magazine. And if that's not enough, in 2021, she published her first book, The Democratization of the Private Market. Good afternoon, Carine, and thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me, Cynthia.
So you have a long history in business, finance, investing, technology. Take us through it. Again, in plain English, tell us how you got into this wacky, wild world and what you're doing now that's so important.
Yeah, because I feel like what I'm doing now is kind of a culmination of everything I did before. I like to tell people I started my career as a receptionist at Oracle. That was my first job, and I lasted 3 days. And I lost a phone message for the CFO, and next thing you know, I'm on the IPO team, and I went through all of that, and I felt like Forrest Gump. I just would just be in places, and looking back, those were amazing experiences. And the chairman of the board of Oracle, Don Lucas at the time, had said to me, "You are going to be in rooms that most people would give their right arm to get into. So when you're there, just absorb, just listen to everything that's going on." And I did that. And I really think that helped me early on in my career to understand how things worked. I have a degree in psychology and sociology, so I'm not an MBA, and I really learned a lot about business. That took me into a lot of different things, but I ended up becoming a partner at PwC and did a lot of consulting, ran around the world. And everyone kept saying to me, "You live in Silicon Valley. Why aren't you an entrepreneur?" And I kept thinking, yeah, really good question. Why am I advising everybody else and they're all, making companies and having all the fun? So in about 2005, 2006, I was approached by someone I knew well who wanted to start a company. And I said, well, I'd be interested as long as I'm the CEO. And it was a throwaway line. It was one of those things like, well, this isn't really serious. And he said, no, we want you to be CEO, and we're raising money. And this happened to be an Irish company. The Irish government was going to be an investor. And the business plan was really solid, and so we raised money, and we did well, and that company actually sold to JP Morgan a couple of years ago for $750 million. So that was exciting. That was moving into that whole entrepreneurial world. Long story, we don't have enough time to talk about why I left, but I ended up becoming CEO of a software company. I was CEO of a services company, now software. And it's very stressful. It's really, really, really draining. And so I ended up going back into a bigger company again. And then I became president of NASDAQ Private Market. And that was kind of my right turn into working with unlisted private companies and taking what I had learned as an entrepreneur and helping them. So I was there for a number of years and then left and ended up running one more software company, building a platform from ground up, blockchain, AI, using all the greatest technology. And I have to tell you, about a year ago, I just thought, I've done what I can do. And I found that I was always helping people connect. And so people are always saying, "Can you help me find so and so?" Or can you tell me how to do this? You've had all this experience. I'm just starting my company, or I'm just whatever. And so my partner and I started Compass Equity Strategic Partners, really to help companies grow and to help them get to that next level. And sometimes that next level is saying, I'm out. I need to sell my company. I can't raise any more capital, or I've done enough. We have one client right now who's doing tremendously well after 8 years and is saying, well, what's the next step? Where do I go? Do I grow? Do I sell? Do I partner? And then we have other companies who are really small who just to say, I just need to raise money. I just, need to get my first client or my 10th client or whatever it is. So we work with companies around the world and we help them just get to the right people, and it's really fun. It is uses every cylinder in my brain of the last almost 40 years of working with people around the world to deliver that. So that's kind of what I've been doing.
That was a mouthful.
Yeah.
But yes, you condensed a very long history into a very short period of time. You talked about being an entrepreneur and the stress of it, and running other companies, public companies as well. Any advice for budding entrepreneurs they have a great idea, they're thinking about, I want to do a product market fit, even if they know what that means.
Mhm.
um, and everybody says they want to raise money, and I think sometimes not raising the money and kind of figuring it out may be a better road to take. But I'd love to hear from you because you've been an investor as well in the
Mhm.
Valley.
Yep,
You've
yep.
invested in a lot of companies, small and large. You know what's going on. You know what investors are looking for. And the last couple of years has been really difficult
Yeah.
for many, many companies, even with great track records, even with clients, even with recurring revenue. What would you say to somebody today who's like, I'm gonna take this idea and run with it?
Yeah. So a couple of bits of advice I would give people. First of all, raising money, it is like getting married, and it's getting married to a very powerful person. So I don't think people understand. You've got this great idea, you've developed this company, you believe it's your baby, and no one understands it as well as you. And now this investor arrives, and let me tell you, this investor thinks they know much more than you do. And in some cases, they give you great advice and they're helpful and they open doors. But yeah, with this current company, I didn't want any outside investment because it is extraordinarily stressful.
Yeah.
And it is something where you have a relationship with someone or a group of people where everything single thing you say is remembered, is written down. And so if you say, well, we think by May we're going to have 15 clients, they'll be back May 1st and they'll say, so you said you had 15 clients. How many clients do you have? And you can come up with every excuse in the book why you only have 8. And you're going to be so proud of having 8 and all the hard work you did. And they're going to be disappointed. Um, it is also a 24/7 job. So if you are someone who can't, who just physically doesn't have that opportunity in their lives due to other things, I highly discourage you from thinking about doing this. It is also a very traumatic experience. I've never met an entrepreneur or founder yet who went, oh, yeah, this was super simple and no
Yeah.
problems. And I didn't cry and I didn't, think about jumping off a bridge or something. It is so traumatic. So I'm not trying to discourage people because there are people who build great companies. But I would also say get a partner. Don't do this alone. That's the other thing too. I think it's really hard to do this alone.
What do you think about the incubators? I mean, there's been so much hoopla about Y Combinator and oh, they produced all these, amazing unicorns, which I hate that word, but whatever. What do you think about them now? And are they still as relevant as they were 5 years ago?
Well, there's a lot of them out there now. So, which, like everything else, they're ripoffs, and you got to kind of wade through it and figure out what's a good incubator. Um, I think there's still a lot of broadom that goes on in these incubators. And so there's a lot of, whoever kind of has the flashiest thing gets the most attention, and you have to kind of fight for that attention. I've seen there's a different style, something called a venture studio, which is kind of popular now in Silicon Valley, which is an idea where I actually think it's I haven't seen it go long enough yet to know how well it's going to do. But the idea is that if you're someone with a really great idea, but you're not a business person, you can go to these firms that are venture studios, and what they will do is build a company around you. So they'll do all the HR and the marketing and the legal and the fundraising, and they'll say, Cynthia, you just focus on your product. You build that product, we'll take care of all the other things that you need to do in order to build a company. Now, of course, that isn't free.
Yes,
So they take a big portion of it. But for some people, that's a really interesting way to go. Incubators are a little different. They take a percentage of your company and they try to help you. But in the end, you're still having to be all those things that I just mentioned. And so I actually encourage people, especially those who are in the technical world and working in AI. I know some great venture studios with people who will really help. And I'm kind of curious if this isn't going to be a model we'll start to see replicating more as the days go by.
I mean, I think at least with the economy the way it is today and the tightening of the venture funding, I get asked constantly about other ways of finding funds. And, I always try to encourage them also, hey, do you know that there are grants?
Yeah.
There's free money, like free money out
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
grants, cities that are starting up that are saying we want to bring technical people in, we'll give you money to do the X, Y, and Z. There's a lot of that happening as well. That I think you just have to dig around. We have a thing called the internet, and you have to just search around, do some of your homework. Do you find entrepreneurs are more or less likely to, you know, come together and help each other? Because I've seen both sides of it. I've seen entrepreneurs helping other, pulling up, like, I got to this level, here's, I'm sharing, because you're the type like me who gives it all, shares it all. But I've seen the other side of it too, where it's, I know all of this. And what
Yeah.
what do you see kind of, this next generation seems to be very different
Yeah.
than maybe the
I
generation
don't
before.
see so I see a couple of things. I just met with an entrepreneur last week, young woman, interesting idea. I don't think it's going to work. I spent a half an hour with her. I just thought, you don't have it.
Yeah.
I wrote her an email when I got back. Haven't heard from her yet. It's been a week. Those things, all those things just don't work. I think that I don't see a lot of people helping in that age group. I think some of the older people are looking back and saying, I'll help you, but I'm not wasting my time. And so when someone says, and I'm sure you have the same thing, can you
Yep.
look at my deck?
Yep.
I look at the deck and I give them the feedback and I say, it can't be 63 pages long. Like you have to get it down to 10 or 15.
And
And
12. Yeah. Uh-huh.
yeah. And you have to tell your story and your financial projections don't make any sense.
Yep.
Anyone who can add two and two together will know that you are totally making this up without any logic. And you give this feedback. And after a while, people are like, no, no, I think I'm right. I think 63 pages is the right way to go. Then I think
Okay.
I don't want to waste my time anymore. So there's a little bit of that jadedness that I think maybe people who are been around a while have. And I think the younger people are definitely, from what I can tell, really out to help themselves, and that's it.
Yeah, it's too bad because I do find, I mean, I work with a lot of entrepreneurs as you do too, and I find ones that have been around the block or have had the idea and it's been 10 years in the idea, they're very much like they understand now the 24/7, the grit that it takes, the struggle with investors, and they're more than willing when somebody comes to them and says, I don't know what to do. I hit a wall. They're one of the first people that wants to jump in and say, okay. But also we all have limited time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we have to do what we have to do. Um, there's this acronym behind your name, FGE. What the heck does that
Oh,
mean?
yeah.
I've
Yeah.
seen it on LinkedIn for a million years.
Yeah.
I'm always like, FGE, not
Yeah.
okay. I couldn't, what does that mean?
It's a fellow of global equity. So what it means is it's through an organization, a nonprofit I started 25 years ago called the Global Equity Organization. And what they do is they honor people who've been around a long time and who've worked in equity compensation. So that's what it is. It's kind of a British idea of being a fellow.
Got it. Okay. The book. What inspired the book?
Yeah.
It's been what, 2 years or three, couple years,
Yeah,
right?
year and a half. Yeah. So I've written two books actually. One I will tell you is the democratization of the private market, and you can get it on Amazon. I wrote it in about 4 or 5 months. I wrote it really quickly, and it really was at the time I was working with all these private companies, and it had to do with accredited investors.
Mhm.
And what I found was people are trying to raise money. You can only raise from accredited investors. And I was talking to my kids who were adult people, and they would have these great ideas and they were like, oh, I really want to invest in this company. And I'd say, but you're not an accredited investor. But they knew a lot more about whatever we were talking about than I did. And so it really got me going and thinking, I want to write a book for the regulators, but also for people who are in this business to talk about how can we make the private market open to more people? And
Mm,
how can people participate more? Because I live in Silicon Valley, it is so clicky. You know, if
yeah.
you know the right people, then you get to fund all the great startups and you get to be in all the great places. But if you're living in Main Street, Iowa, you'll never have that opportunity. So
Yeah.
there's some companies that have started now, there's some technology, but still the regulators are very far behind in terms of letting Main Street participate, which drives me crazy because if I said, there's an ETF that's publicly traded on Nasdaq, do you want to invest in it? You probably say, what is that and how does it work? Well, you can go and do that. You don't have to be accredited. But
Right.
if I said, do you want to invest in Stripe?
Yeah.
That everybody knows, I'd say, I'm sorry, you're not accredited. You can't participate. So it doesn't totally make sense.
Yeah. And that's really unique. And then the second book.
So I wrote a book for fun. It's called Chatleat House, Chatleat, Chatleat House, and it's about a woman kind of my age and her next chapter in her life and where she ends up. And it's a little bit of a murder mystery. And I wrote that one for fun, and that one's on Amazon too. So if you're looking for a beach read, that's maybe one to think about.
This has been great. You've had an amazing career. And how do people reach out to you if they want to work with you? How do they get you besides LinkedIn?
Yeah.
How else can they get you?
Yeah. So our website is compassequity.com. And I can be reached at Carine, and that's spelled like Marine. It's Carine at compass-equity.com.
Super. Carine, it's been amazing as usual. I'm so happy to see your smiling face, giving you
Yeah.
virtual hugs.
Well, same back.
And thanks so much for being on the show.
You bet. Thanks, Cynthia. Take care.